Hello, my name is Jim Gurman, and welcome to another episode of
Kilimanjaro.
Today I'm going to be looking at Dewalt's little router. It's the DWP611. I got the PK version, which includes both of these bases, the regular base and the plunge base. It also includes this rather nice soft-sided bag here. It doesn't include this little dust shroud, but it's available as an accessory and it's only about $10 or $15. Before I talk about the bases, let's take a moment just to look at the router itself. So the motor is very small. It's only 1.25 horsepower. It has two nice little LEDs here that put out lots of light right where you need it. It has a stop here so that you only need one wrench to change the bit. So it's a 17mm wrench that's included. It's just a typical punch wrench, nothing fancy, but it's fairly thick, which makes it fairly nice to use. So once you undo the collet, the bit slides right out. I also like the fact that the router has a flat top. That means when you change the bit, you can lay it upside down and it sits there, doesn't wiggle around on you. If you flip it over, up top there's a switch that has a dust protector on it. It should increase the durability of the router. It's also got a speed controller from 1 to 6. The router comes with an 8-foot cord with a regular two-prong plug on it. It's nice that it doesn't have a 3-prong plug. It makes it a little easier to find an outlet to use it in. One last thing about the router motor. When it came with grease in these grooves here. That should make the bases easier to slide on, which is a great idea, except it means that as soon as you start using it, bits of dust and dirt get caked into that grease and get lodged in there. I think it would have been a better idea just to leave it dry, and then you wouldn't accumulate all this dirt and stuff that's in here. First, let's talk about the fixed base. To put the router in it, there's a groove over here that you align with a slide over here. You undo this clasp down here, which is adjustable in tightness if you want to be a little looser, a little tighter. And then it just drops right in. Now, as it is, there's not very much fine depth control, but it's pretty easy to adjust. If you're using a bit like this that's a roundover bit, you can just slide it where you want it, lock it down, and you're good to go. However, if you want a little bit finer depth control, you can add this ring here. This just twists on. And then when you slip the base into it, these two clips here will lock into the top of it. Now you can just lock it down and your position is fixed, or if you unlock it, you can rotate this base, and as you rotate it, it slides up and down. There's some markings in here that they're pretty hard to read. They're covered by this collar here, which makes it a little irritating, but they'll show how much of an adjustment you get per turn. You'll notice that the base is this nice clear thick plastic, which makes it easy to see what you're doing. It's round on one side so that if you're running against the fence, if you rotate it a little, it's not going to change the distance your bit is from the fence. It's also square on the other, and that extends out to give you a little bit more surface area. In the base, there's these two grooves, one on each side, which is nice. It shows you where the line of the center line of the bit is. I've got a 1/4 inch radius roundover bit in here now. This is a white side bit that has this brass pilot on it instead of a bearing that lets you get in nice tight corners. So when I turn it on, notice that the LEDs shine. It's a little hard to tell with this light, but they're really nice and bright. It makes it very easy to see what you're doing. I've got this set at number 6 on the speed dial, so it's spinning at 27,000 RPM. That's plenty to make a nice smooth cut that's not going to require a significant amount of sanding when you're done. Let's talk about the plunge base now. Motor goes in the same way, it just slips in, there's a little pin down there. Motor slides down, there's a dead stop at the bottom, you close the clasp and you're good to go. On the bottom here you'll notice that there's an arrow showing the bit direction turn, which is good to prevent making climb cuts. There's also 2 holes here for an optional edge guide attachment, which can be very useful, but it's a little hard to find and it's kind of expensive. You'll also notice that there's a depth guide and a depth pin, and then at the bottom there's this turret that you can adjust to get different depth steps. This lever here operates the plunge mechanism. When you pull on it this way, you can then slide it up and down. It's got a bit of a spring to it, so it will pop back up for you, but it's not so much that it'll just jerk back up as soon as the spring gets released. I really like how easy it is to use. You can just put your thumb on it and flip it around. Works very well. I think it works a lot better than some of the other ones where you twist this handle to adjust the plunge. Now I'll fire it up so you can see how well it works. I've got the speed set for 6, which is 27,000 RPM, and it's probably a little fast for this bit, so we'll see how it goes. So you can see a couple things. The first is that this burnt pretty badly. Part of that's that the bit's a little dull. As with most routers, that sprays chips everywhere. So now let's try out this dust shroud here, which just gets installed by pushing it down here, and then there's a little thumb screw that you spin here, and that holds it in place. I'll put my vacuum on it. My vacuum happens to just slip right in there. If you have a bigger one, it'll probably clamp over the top of it. You can always just use a piece of duct tape to hold it on. I'm going to turn on my vacuum, and then with the dust collection on, you can see how well that works. So you can see there's no sawdust anywhere. It does a great job cleaning that up. Now if it was on the edge, it would do not as well a job because the chips would fly out underneath the bottom. But for plunge cuts like this or for dados, it works great. Now that I've shown you all the features of the router, let me take a minute to talk about the quality of it. The design of it is very nice. It's very well thought out. There's a lot of little things that make your life easier. For instance, this little V channel here makes it a lot easier to slide it and align it with that pin there. Makes it nice and easy to put in. They put a lot of thought into how to do this. For instance, this being flat on top. That's something that you might not think about, but it makes life a lot easier. The quality of the materials is top notch. The rubber handles feel really nice. These latches, they're not plastic, they're metal. The castings for the aluminum bases are well done. There's not a large gap line in the mold. Even little things like the strain relief on the extension cord. It's nice and long and it tapers down so that it's not going to bend too much and it'll keep the cord lasting a long time. It's also very ergonomic and easy to use. This step stop control, for instance, is very easy to flip open and it springs closed. Doesn't have too strong a spring, so it's too hard to do, but it does lock nice and tight on there. These grips feel really nice in the hand, makes it real easy to maneuver the router wherever you want. This fixed base feels really good in my hand. If you have smaller hands, maybe it won't be as nice, but for me, it's really easy to use. You get really good control with this. It's a small router, so it's not the most powerful, but for any 1/4" bit that I've used, it's had more than enough to get the job done. Sometimes you need to take a little bit smaller of a plunge than you might with a bigger, regular size router, but that's to be expected with a router in this size. I think Dewalt has done an excellent job with this router. Not only the design of it, which is excellent and very well thought out, but also the build quality. This router is actually made in Mexico, not made in China, and they've been able to keep the build quality quite high. Everything moves really nicely. All the latches flip open and close really well, and the slide up and down on the plunge base works very nicely. Dewalt only charges $200 for this, and I think it's a fantastic deal and great value for money. Thanks for watching.